Well, I think Mr. Putin is obviously he had to say yes to the ceasefire in principle and say, but there's a few details, there's a few nuances. Like, let's get to the root causes. What's the root cause? The root cause is Ukraine wants to be aligned with the West. It wants protection from Russian interference, from from the assassinations, from all of that. It wants to develop in peace the way that Poland has as a member of NATO. That's what Ukraine wants, and that's, for Mr. Putin, the root cause. And he would like to roll back NATO even further and roll it back and take the Baltics back and bring in Moldova, Bulgaria. So we're a long way from getting to the root cause. And meanwhile, he's still attacking and still fighting.
So you think that he's doing so against not necessarily a stronger NATO at this point, and maybe Putin doesn't have the incentives to actually go along with this ceasefire? I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he kind of handles it. He quoted, the quote, like to your point, was both sides. You put in the root cause part of it. But what actually is going to happen in the next few days?
I think there'll be discussions back and forth. I think Russia is going to continue to put the squeeze and do everything it can to attack Ukraine. We don't know exactly how much intel from the United States and how much support is actually flowing in right now. What we do know is the Ukrainian forces are desperately short of ammunition and weapons that they cut off from U.S. intelligence, facilitated Mr. Putin's attack in Kursk and in the Kursk salient area. As of this morning, there were rumors that maybe 1,000 Ukrainian forces were encircled and isolated and subject to annihilation deep in this pocket because they didn't get the intelligence in time to pull out. That was the implication, at least. And so what we would expect is this a typical model for the way the Soviets did it before, the way Russia does it, the way North Korea does it. It's talk, talk, fight, fight. And so there'll be talk, there'll be delegations, there'll be conditions, there'll be fighting. And along with those conditions, there'll probably be efforts to say to Mr. President Trump, well, now, you've got to stop arming Ukraine if you want to bring this to a halt. They can't have any more support from you.
Right.
And so while he's running 24/7, I do want to credit President Trump because his semi-hostile attitude toward NATO really has, over the years, awakened the Europeans to the need to put more resources into defense.
Right. That's what I was starting at the beginning. That's his argument that NATO, for all this talk about how Trump's going to leave NATO and the alliance is weaker, that he says because of that, because of spending more, that it's actually stronger.
Yes, but the key thing about NATO is the credibility of the U.S. guarantee for security.
Right.
And as you look at all that's going on in the Trump administration, and I was in Europe last week, I talked to a lot of high-ranking people from different governments. That credibility is real shaky right now.
What are they worried about?
Well, it's not just about whether he would support if they don't pay their dues, but it's about on and off tariffs. It's about saying he wants to take Greenland and Panama.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on? And is the United States a reliable ally? That's the question, because that's always been the most important thing. It's not about defense spending. It's about the reliability, the credibility of the United States, its nuclear guarantees, its assurances. And that's been the umbrella that's allowed the peaceful development of Europe and much of Eastern Europe after they became members of NATO. And that's what's at risk right now.
Well, like one of the questions would be, we were talking about Article 5 and the introduction there about how it was invoked after 9/11 for the only time, is that if the Europeans sent peacekeeping troops, those would be NATO troops from NATO countries into Ukraine, and Russia attacked them. Article 5 would be violated then, right? And the U.S. would be obligated to come to their defense, wouldn't they?
Well, first of all, under Article 5, you're not actually obligated to come to the defense. You're obligated to view it as an attack
okay, right,
and respond as appropriate. But they could say that these troops wouldn't be part of NATO's guarantee. But you know, this is the problem. We realized in the 1990s you can't provide stability and security in Europe if you don't go out of area. And it's the Biden administration which, when this first happened, instead of telling Mr. Putin, back off, you will lose, they fenced around with it and tried to be, you know, cagey with it. And then they set up a policy that said, well, we don't want Ukraine to lose. We don't want to win, but let's not give them everything they need because it might escalate. And look, they've let this drag on.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.